Alright, can Jesus crank 90s? Now, before you start thinking, what in the world are you talking about? Let me explain. Because in Fortnite, cranking 90s is that signature move where you build rapidly in this weird circular motion to get the high ground. It's a move that separates the regular players from the newbies. But could Jesus himself pull it off? Like the guy that lived 2,000 years ago, never played Fortnite. Could he do it? Or is Jesus just some chill guy with some sick resurrection ability? Because if not, is he secretly a Fortnite god? Alright, let's picture this. Jesus is in Fortnite, he's chilling on the battle bus, but instead of jumping off to land like the rest of us, he just floats in the air, looking down at all of us like, y'all are cranking 90s? Well, guess what? I can calm the storm. And we're stressed trying to build our way to victory while Jesus just says, take courage, do not be afraid. And then proceeds to land directly on the water and starts walking away. Like if he could do all that, surely Jesus could crank some 90s. Well, maybe not in the way we think. Let me explain why. We know that in Fortnite, cranking 90s is the ultimate way to get the high ground, stay safe, and look like a total boss while doing it. But if we know that, then surely Jesus would know as well. Like he is literally God. He would know everything. So does he know how to crank 90s? Definitely. But that doesn't mean he'll do them. You can outbuild your enemies, take them by surprise, and flex your building skills, but if Jesus was in the game, would he need to crank 90s to take control? I mean, sure, he could have some of the slickest moves, but what if there's a bigger question here? What if cranking 90s isn't the real trick? If Jesus was actually in Fortnite, I imagine him just breezing through the game. No building required, no mats, no edits, no, oh no, I ran out of floppers. He's got something better. His divine power. Instead of cranking 90s, he'd be calming the storms, multiplying fishes, and offering redemption to those that were trying to kill him. So maybe Jesus doesn't actually need to crank 90s. Imagine yourself in the middle of a Fortnite match, but you choose not to crank 90s. So you're basically playing zero builds in a game of build modes. No mats, no crazy edits, just people building all around you and you're trying to be at peace. How are you meant to get the high ground? No matter what you do, the enemy can always build over you. The storm is always closing in and the possibility of winning is, well, basically zero. But then you realize that there is a hack that can help you win. Help you to get the high ground and overcome the storm. You realize that there's an easier way to win. And this secret is exactly what I think Jesus would use. Here's a little story that'll show you what I mean. It was back in a match that I had that really made me think about all this. It was the end zones. I was going hard, cranking 90s like a pro, or trying to anyways. But I was feeling like I had it all under control. But the catch was that the storm was closing in fast. I suddenly had zero mats, and it felt like the game was slipping out of my hands. My focus started to slip, I lost my rhythm, and before I could even finish my medkit, I got caught in the storm. I couldn't even see it coming. And at that moment, I realized something huge. No matter how fast I built or how many 90s I cranked, the storm was always just one step ahead. It didn't matter if I was the fastest builder on the map. And sometimes there are things outside of my control. And that's when I started thinking, what if there's a different way to play? What if we don't need to outbuild everything in life to survive? What if we don't need mats and don't need to worry about the storm? I'm just picturing Jesus in this scenario. He wouldn't be sweating over materials or cranking faster than anyone else. He would be in the storm, calm as can be, saying, peace, be still. And boom, the storm would stop. No 90s required. That's the exact kind of power that Jesus has. No need to crank 90s. He's got peace that calms the storm. And we know this because of Mark 4, verses 37 to 41. It's all about Jesus and his disciples when they're on a boat in the middle of this massive storm. The waves are crashing, the wind is howling, and the disciples are freaking out. And now remember, these guys, they're experienced fishermen. They've seen storms before. But this one is so bad that they all think they're going to drown. But what do you think Jesus is doing during all of that chaos? Well, he was asleep. Can you imagine that? The guys are in complete panic, but Jesus is just catching some Z's in the back of the boat. They wake him up, and in the middle of the storm, he does something absolutely insane. He tells the storm, he speaks to it literally, and says, "Peace, be still." And just like that, everything calms down. The wind stops, the waves settle, and there's total peace. Jesus doesn't need to crank 90s to win the game. He doesn't need to outbuild anyone or farm mats to survive the storm. He literally can tell the storm to be still. And while we're out here struggling, cranking 90s, trying to build our way to safety from the storm, Jesus is standing there offering us a better way, a way out of the storm. No Fortnite edits needed, no 90s. But this is where it gets deep, because what does that mean for us in real life? Can we trust Jesus when life starts putting enemies in our way and a storm is closing in on us? Because in Fortnite, when we crank 90s, we're trying to survive the enemies and get to safety from the storm. But in real life, we often feel the same way. We build, hustle, work harder, and try to outlast whatever chaos is coming our way. But no matter what we try, it always feels like the storm is closing in on us. The cool thing is that Jesus doesn't ask us to outbuild the chaos. Instead, he invites us to trust him, to trust in his death and resurrection, that it has overcome and enemies that we will face, so that through him no storm can overcome us. Because when we face storms in real life, Jesus isn't asking us to crank harder or faster. He's asking us to find peace in the middle of it all. Sure, it feels like the world is closing in on us, but only Jesus is the one who can calm the storm. And guess what? He doesn't need mats to do it. So can Jesus crank 90s? Look, I'm sure if he had a PC and felt like doing some 90s, he probably could. But it's not about that. It's about the fact that Jesus doesn't need 90s to secure victory. So the ultimate strategy for winning Fortnite is locking in, preparing for the battle, and whether you win or lose, going back in and fighting again. But in real life, you get one shot. So when you feel like you're running out of materials and can't find a way to win, remember, it's time to stop cranking 90s and start trusting Jesus to bring peace to your life. That's the ultimate strategy for winning the game of life.